Aikman is back in. The whole season essentially comes down to this play for these two great teams. Roll, flip it, got it. Oh, the ball was dropped. He had the two-point conversion in his hands. Andrews did not hold on.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, Baltimore. The drop by Henry earlier. Andrews had a drop as well earlier. And for the game to go possibly
Oh my goodness, Jim. Yeah, man. That is a heartbreaking way to end a season, Coach.
Yeah. Truly is. From one of your most trusted receivers on that team, the guy that's been old reliable all year, all season, multiple seasons. That is not how you envisioned this year ending for the Baltimore Ravens, I presume. So,
yeah, man. I'm just gonna say this.
mm-hmm.
In that situation, I would not be a good teammate. I'm just gonna be straight up and down honest.
No elaborating on it.
No,
okay.
I would not be a good teammate. I promise you. You wouldn't even have made it to the sideline, and I would have been like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me, dog?"
Mm-hmm.
It's almost in that position. I would have treated you like a kicker. Your only job is to kick. I would have treated Mark Andrews like a kicker. Your only job is to catch the ball, bro.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, you out of all people.
Yeah, especially
you out of all people.
Play was ran for him.
Man, retire, bro. That would have been my statement. Retire. Retire, bro. Hey, get him up out of here, dog.
Yep.
Get him up out of here. He ain't built for this.
No doubt. Well,
But
anyways, welcome back to episode 17 of the Halftime Podcast. I can't believe we're here already.
Is that what this is?
It's episode 17, Coach.
God damn.
It's crazy. We appreciate the support all over our platforms on social media, whether it's TikTok. Oh, thank God TikTok's back. That's pretty big. We were about to lose a decent amount of fans on there, man.
We were gonna lose our minds on TikTok.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
we love our fans on TikTok, but
Yeah.
I'm not on TikTok,
Right.
So I don't have the TikTok
because you're Unk
love.
status. So I mean,
Whatever, dog.
all right. Well,
Whatever.
Let's go ahead and get into the divisional round in the NFL. Obviously, we led off with the drop heard around the world. Let's go ahead and recap some of these games here on the quicks. We could go ahead and start with that Baltimore game since it was the first one we had. In my opinion, it's very back and forth. I kind of anticipated from the first quarter that the Bills were going to pull this upset, which sucked because I had a parlay with Ravens money line, and I would have won me a decent amount of money off of just $5.
Had the Baltimore one.
I literally just needed Baltimore to win. That's all I needed left. I hit on everything else from the Rams game against the Eagles, and then they just sold me. And the Chiefs game, too. I hit everything in those games, but they sold me. I was really confident in Baltimore going into that game, considering how they played against Buffalo earlier in the year.
Yeah.
But Baltimore came out ready. They were in Buffalo. I mean, they were earlier in the year, too, but it's just that time of year, Buffalo, where everything's colder, it's so much harder to catch the ball, to stay on your feet, but that's no excuse, man. You got the reigning, AFC, not champions, but, great AFC contender and MVP candidate and probably winner in Lamar Jackson. So
maybe. I mean, I guess if we're talking regular season, you're correct.
Yeah, because I think those votes are due before the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
they are, even though I know that the NFL is the NFL, and if they want somebody to be MVP, somebody can be MVP at any point in time.
Business is business.
Business is business. I'll say this.
Yep.
The game is obviously a tale of two halves. I'll say this. A team can afford themselves to have turnovers usually in the first half of football.
Sure.
Not saying it's ideal, but if you're going to have turnovers, you would rather your turnovers come in the first half of the game rather than the second half of the game.
Absolutely.
There are some fans who will probably say Lamar didn't play well and he didn't play up to Lamar's standard because he ended up having an interception and a fumble in the first half. Granted, all factual. But the way he played in the second half kind of negates what he did in the first half based upon the way he came back out in the second half. Mark Andrews messed this game up for the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people may or may not like that take. Some people might be like, well, Lamar had the turnovers too. Why is people? It's different. It's a different situation when, like I said, you make the turnovers in the first half, but Lamar was actively making that up. In the second half, Mark Andrews had a couple situations where it just ruined basically the Baltimore Ravens from having a chance.
No doubt.
The reception that turned into a fumble
Mm-hmm.
because he did not have ball security and allowed it to get punched out. Okay, cool. It happens.
Yep.
Right. You respond to that. Baltimore responds to that. You know, that's when you're the good teammate mode right there. Like, come on, man, we'll get it back. And they did.
Yeah.
88-yard drive, end of game. You got to have it. Lamar Jackson leads them down the field.
They
They score in Buffalo in that type of weather.
Mm-hmm.
2-point conversion. All you need to go to overtime. And I promise you, I believe, once again, similar to how Baker's situation with the Commanders, if you get to overtime, if Baltimore gets that ball in
They
any
probably win that
capacity,
game.
they win that game the way that they were rolling. Because honestly, the way that they adjusted in the second half going to that 2 tight end package, Buffalo had no answer for them once they went to that package. So I am a strong believer that had that game got to overtime, Baltimore would have pulled this out. But if it's were fifths, we'll all be drunk, Coach.
Yep, that's very true.
So
Very true.
it's sad as far as my Super Bowl prediction. That's completely out the window now that Baltimore has a loss. But if you're a Baltimore Raven fan, you probably have to be completely sick to your stomach. But if you are a Kansas City Chief fan, you are very happy that you do not have to see Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry because they were definitely the team that was going to run you out of your stadium.
Yeah, I don't have any doubt about that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, quick recap of that game against the Texans.
They killed
Not
it.
much. Yeah, not much to recap. The score doesn't say that they killed them, but they killed them pretty much all 4 quarters.
CJ Stroud got sacked 8 times?
Yeah, something like that. Just the pass rush was great. Offensive line for the Texans was not great. The Kansas City offense kind of found a little bit of a stride between Mahomes and Kelsey, but that's about it. I mean, the next receiver after Kelsey to record over 50 yards was Xavier Worthy. And, you know, he's just big player bust. That's all he is. So, I think the Chiefs really became America's most hated team after last week, considering the things and calls Patrick Mahomes was getting.
I think they've been on that. I think they've been trending that way.
They've been trending that way, but I think after last week, man, the whole nation is just
nobody it's funny because we champion winners until we don't want to champion them no more.
Very true.
So I think that's the very funny thing about like American fan bases and American fans' relationship with winners. It's like you love them when they're like the underdog story, and you love them when they get their first win and their second win. But once they start hitting the version or the conversation about dynasty, then it's like, well, we're tired of these guys winning. Somebody else needs to win, and it's like, wait, I thought we like winners.
No, that's very true. I
thought that's what we enjoy, the consistency of the people that can consistently get it done. I thought that's what we enjoy. But hey, at this point, am I mad that people have a Kansas City Chiefs fatigue? No, I think that works for all businesses. I think that works for the NFL. The best thing to have is a situation where you have a team that's polarized. Some hate them, some love them. Makes good for a big show.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
So we'll see what happens with Kansas City in the championship round. But moving on to the next divisional game, let's do Philly in LA.
Yeah, Philly in LA.
How did you feel about that one?
Very tight game. They were trying to make Jalen Hurts throw that football, and when he did, he wasn't too successful. I think he ended with 128 yards or something along those lines. Nothing phenomenal, but at the same time, Saquon Barkley rushed for over 200 yards and 2 fucking touchdowns. I mean, Saquon Barkley was just doing Saquon Barkley things. And that Philly,
he won't get it. But
he won't get it, but man, that Philly O-line also balled the fuck out. You know, the Rams just had no match for that run game. Jared Verse is probably their only like competent pass rusher or guy to get into the backfield.
Yeah.
He had his 2 sacks, but I mean, he can't be the only one on that front four.
Well, he
that's
definitely needs help, but I like him.
He's great. He's a fucking rookie too, man.
I like him.
He's been balling out. I think they picked him up at like 18 or something. I think it was.
Was he?
Yeah, he was a very.
Was
he was like mid
that
to late
Okay,
first round pick.
I didn't know that.
This
Okay.
I'm telling you, we're gonna talk about this probably in another episode, but I think this first round draft, the last NFL draft from 2024
is a classic draft, all time draft class.
I think so, man. There's a lot of great players all around. No surprise for me though. I did have Philly coming in and winning. I didn't think convincingly, which they didn't really win convincingly.
Nah.
The Rams kind of made a push towards the end of the game. Matthew Stafford threw for over 350 yards, which he did Matthew Stafford things.
Right.
But you got to play a complete game at the end of the day. So, Philly, congrats to you guys making it to the NFC Championship again. Now, I think the biggest upset from this divisional round, the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. I did say I would not have been surprised if the Commanders did it. I had full faith in the Detroit Lions to win this game, even though they're an NFC North rival with the Bears. Detroit has become more of a likable team as of late. But I would say kind of through this playoff run and kind of the more cockiness they've been carrying this year, people are starting to hate them a little bit more.
You think so?
I think
I don't
so.
think they've been cocky.
When they lost, Amon-Ra St. Brown got so much fucking hate because of the shit he says on his podcast. He talks the most shit on his podcast.
I mean, it's his podcast. What is he supposed to be? He's supposed to be humble?
No, not. I'm not saying that. I'm not criticizing him for doing so. I'd do the same if I was in his position.
Yeah, it's my podcast. I can pop my shit.
That's the thing though. When you lose, everything backfires. He got absolutely slaughtered in the media. But yeah, Washington played a great game, man. Great game. People, we're gonna talk about it probably in a little bit, but the Detroit offense still put up 512 total yards. Jahmyr Gibbs still rushed for over 100. David Montgomery only rushed for about 32 yards,
Right.
Off of 8 carries or more. So he didn't have the greatest game. And Jared Goff threw 3 picks. Jameson Williams threw a pick. Like, it was just a very turnover-infested game for the Detroit Lions. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And everything for the Commanders went right.
Just about. I mean, I think we'll talk about it more.
Yeah.
I just think the Commanders came in understanding what they had to do to win, and the Detroit Lions didn't come in understanding what they had to do to win. And I think that was a separation of the game. Washington knew what they had to do, and Detroit didn't. They didn't. In my opinion, they didn't fully come in understanding what they needed to do specifically for that game to win. But we'll talk about that later.
I think, just real quick to wrap this up, I think this might be, it's a talented roster, but this might start the downfall of Detroit from here because
I know they're losing both of their coordinators.
Both of them.
Yeah, I know
and probably their offensive line coach as well.
Maybe, but I believe in Dan Campbell because I believe that he is a pure leader. So I think he can find the right people to come in and insert here, insert there, and keep things rolling. Now, maybe they won't be as prolific and as electrifying as they once was. But if you notice anything about the divisional round games, it's not about the electrifying teams that won the game. It's all about just playing.
It's the nitty and gritty.
It's playing football the right way when it's cold. When it gets cold and it's come January, there's a whole different saying of like football in January is completely different than football in September.
Absolutely.
So
no doubt. All right, well, that was the recap of this last divisional round. So, speaking of the Washington Commanders, let's go ahead and play our favorite game, Coach.
Our favorite game, which is, Coach,
who's cooking and who needs to stay the out the kitchen? I haven't got to say that in a little bit, man. It felt great. It felt great. Anyways, number 1 of who's cooking, Cliff Kingsbury of the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to say this really quickly. He's been great all year. He had his rough couple of weeks in the middle of the season when Washington's offense kind of took a little bit of a drought. But they've been consistent. They've been
Mhm.
really consistent in what they've been trying to accomplish and do, especially with the rookie quarterback and the talent that Jaden Daniels has.
Yes.
He has perfectly accommodated to all of those needs that Jaden Daniels had and has played around his strengths and eliminated some of his weaknesses, which there aren't many. And kudos to Cliff Kingsbury and that whole coaching staff. I could say the same thing about Dan Quinn. He's
Right.
been a great leader for this team, a good defensive play
And
caller.
potential coach of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in the works. I
Yeah.
think that's also an award that gets decided before
Yeah.
the playoffs, but
Yeah.
I don't think, he was not in the running. I'm sure maybe Kevin O'Connell will probably get it, but
I think Kevin O'Connell was probably in the lead for it, but
yeah,
Dan Quinn,
telling you that-
he made a strong case all season.
no
for it.
doubt. And
Yeah.
I think just the way Cliff Kingsbury has been able to call these games on the offensive side of the football has just shown. Like it's shown the expertise, it's shown the moxie, it's shown the IQ that the
Mhm.
man has in the game of football.
Absolutely.
And he's widely respected on the offensive side. He was just never successful as a head coach, but as offensive coordinator, whether he was at USC, wherever he
Texas
was in
Tech,
college,
anywhere.
exactly. He succeeded at the offensive coordinator position. So I pass that off to you.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add. I think the only thing I have to say is that he's definitely putting himself back into a position where if he wants a head coaching job, whether this year or next year, he's definitely put himself back into contention for that.
No doubt. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't take a job somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, there's still a chance. Raiders are still open. Jacksonville
true.
is still open. So I mean, there's a strong possibility that some of these franchises are just kind of waiting until certain teams are kind of done. Joe Brady included. They're just kind of waiting to see exactly what teams are going to be left standing, and then whatever people they're looking at from the organizations that's still playing football, once they're done, they'll probably have their conversations with those coordinators that they're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Yeah.
like they did with the Lions coordinators.
Absolutely.
All right. Next guy up on Who's Cooking. Mentioned him earlier. Saquon Barkley.
MVP. He
Man,
should be.
he's
but
so-
he
he's
ain't
so
gonna be.
worthy of
He's
it
not,
this year,
he's
man.
not going to be because Philadelphia fucked up and didn't let him get his fucking
record?
Russian title record. Fucking bastards.
Yeah, no doubt. He's been great all year. He's been consistent. When Philly has ran the football, they've been successful. When
Yes.
they haven't been successful.
No.
He is the direct, it's a direct relationship about the Philadelphia Eagles' success and Saquon Barkley's play. Saquon plays good,
They
Philly
win.
plays good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If he plays bad or he doesn't get touches, Philly don't win. It's just as simple as that. Or it's a very tight game. And
Yeah,
to the point where Philly
yeah.
sometimes is lost like earlier in the year.
I would say if Saquon doesn't play well, it's a tight game, and then it requires Jalen Hurts to be heroic.
And we know and we've seen in the past, like years prior, he's been capable.
Yeah.
And I think he's surprised some people. But this year, I think he's come to true form. I think he was just on a little bit of a hot streak. Like I've been saying, I'm not a complete believer in Jalen Hurts.
I know.
I don't hate on him. I think he's a good leader at the quarterback position, but I just don't think he's this guy that they project him to be. That's all I think.
I don't have too much of an argument against that. I just know he's a winner, and sometimes, I mean, at the end of the day, you value winners more than you value talent, depending on the situation
True.
that you have. Philadelphia is set up to where they don't necessarily need Jalen Hurts to be the most talented quarterback. They just need him not to fuck things up.
That's very true.
And for the most part, he does a good job of not fucking things up.
Yeah.
Now, what you question is just, will it ever come a time where you're gonna need Jalen Hurts to outperform another quarterback, and that just may be what may be coming very soon, and we'll get to that later on in the show.
We sure will. We sure will. Anyway, shout out to Saquon. Been consistent all year. Been balling all year. Definitely deserving of this who's cooking portion. He's been on it a couple times, I believe, this year.
Yeah.
So shout out to Saquon.
Yeah.
Next up, a name we haven't said this year,
No.
and it is probably refreshing to some people to see this guy back on here. Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Man, I feel like he's just been a disappearing act all season.
Yeah, and so is that that prolific Chiefs offense.
Yeah, but a part of what made them prolific was, I'm gonna say a part. A great part of what made them prolific was Tyreek Hill, and since he's left, they've been a completely different Chiefs offensive team. They've kind of been more so like a very grit and grind offensive team.
Kind of run and dump type of
of thing. And then they just kind of find Travis during crunch time, which is exactly what they've been doing. So because of that departure, they've kind of lost a little bit of that electrifying luster. But when it's crunch time, when in doubt, find 87. And that's exactly what Mahomes has been doing. When in doubt, when in crunch time, find 87, and we're all good to go. And I'm glad to see Travis is cooking and getting things done at the right time because you have a three-peat on your hands, and they're going to need Travis more than ever to kind of have like his Steph Curry in the Olympics moment, where you may not have been doing anything all season, may not have been the best, but in these last few games, you got to turn into a complete monster and turn back the clock, and that's what Travis Kelce is looking like he potentially can do. He can have his Steph Curry moment where the last few games, put it on me, baby, and just ride on me, and we gonna take this home.
Yeah, no rebuttal there. I like that comparison with the Steph Curry and the Olympics.
Yeah.
Just quick wrap up of Travis. Like you mentioned, just been kind of a no-show all year. He's been consistent at least. He's still a guy that doesn't drop the football. He'll still find himself open.
Absolutely.
I just think the whole like dysfunction with this Chiefs offense has been throwing him off, has been throwing Mahomes off. Just a down year for their offense.
Yeah.
But I said it last week. The Chiefs all year have been preparing and game planning plays specifically for the playoffs. And that showed against Houston, because I think if they just came in there, and I think this is what Detroit did to a certain point, besides a couple of plays, where they did the same thing they've been doing all season.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, you're at the highest level of football. Somebody is going to find that counterpunch. In boxing, when you throw a jab, the way to counter it is to slip and throw a hook, right? So, I mean, that's exactly what the Washington Commanders did to the Detroit Lions. And I think that's what the Chiefs are not prone to because of how they've prepared all year.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at this guy. I didn't know he had some boxing in him like that.
I sure do.
All right, Coach.
We'll get into that eventually.
Because I would definitely use that boxing analogy later on. So it's kind of cool that you even slipped that in, because I was going to slip that in too as far as a conversation later on. But that's dope. I like that. I like that.
Well, let's get into our favorite part of this game.
Our favorite part of the game.
Who needs to stay the fuck out the kitchen?
Man. You can just come on with it.
Well, we already know. First guy, Mark Andrews.
Yep. I don't even know. I don't even know if we need to say too much.
No, there really isn't much.
At this point, I just want to say his name.
Yep. That's all we gotta say.
That's all we gotta say.
We talked about it in the opening segment of the show. Man, just
what the fuck, man? Just
ball security.
Yeah, man. And in the biggest moments, man, you just have to make those plays.
Absolutely, especially when you're one of the most prolific tight ends in the league.
You just got to make those plays.
Absolutely, no doubt. Anyways, moving on. Another guy we mentioned, Jared Goff.
Oh,
Christ.
Yeah, I mean, I know. You definitely, we had this conversation about Jared when we were prepping for the show. And as much, I'm not defending him. I want to say that. I want to be adamant and say I'm not defending him. He does need to stay the fuck out the kitchen. But I'll just quickly say that I don't think his failures were all his. He failed, but I don't think it was all his, and I'll save that for when we get into it a little bit more. But he definitely needs to stay the fuck out the kitchen and take this off season to kind of recollect himself and figure out exactly who he is and who he isn't. And once he really dials in on accepting some things about himself, then he'll be able to help Detroit finally get over that hump.
Yeah, sure. I think he's been great all year.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of those games where he does turn
he
the football over.
He threw 5 interceptions this year, and because of their defense was still a little healthy at the time, they were able to win. They
still won that game. You know what I mean? So I think
it's not like we haven't seen this before.
Right. And this isn't the first year that this has happened to Jared Goff either. You know, he's had multiple games like this across his career. He just has a couple of weeks a year where he's just absolutely shit, and he looks like the worst quarterback in the league.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this week was one of those weeks because I don't think that was the case. He still played a pretty okay game, but you gotta keep possession of the football in the playoffs. You just have to.
Absolutely.
And I think it is a little bit of a detriment that they throw the ball for over 40 times. Granted, I think most of that came when they were trailing behind, trying to make a comeback, but I think they only ran the ball about 20-ish times. That's not Detroit. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you're going to mention that in a little bit, but that's not Detroit football. We know Detroit is ground and pound until you stop it. Then we run a play action out of it. Let's find our open receivers. And that's just not what they did this week. And it was kind of surprising to see. But yeah, let's move on to the last group, let's say, of this Stay Out the Kitchen segment. The Chicago Bulls. More so, the Young Bulls. All right.
Young Bulls.
I know Io's on the screen, but I don't want to talk about Io.
Oh, no.
Because
first of all, Io has been playing pretty well when he's
Yes.
been healthy, but he's also been out for a significant portion of time. But the Young Bulls, heading the Young Bulls, is none other than Kobe motherfucking White.
yeah,
And right now, the Chicago Bulls, and we'll get into it more in detail, but the Chicago Bulls young players have not stepped up to the plate and delivered what we thought they would deliver this season with the removal of Alex Caruso and DeMar DeRozan and Andre Drummond, allowing for the team to move into a more modern NBA friendly. I won't say it's not run and gun, but it's more pushing the pace, getting in transition.
it's just pace.
Getting 3-point shots up and things like that. It's just modernize the offense. And coming into the season, the thought was that with the excess freedom that these young guys will play and the pace of it, it would help the young guys kind of get their momentum, get going, and be a little bit more involved and have a little bit more of an impact. And the young players have not stepped up to the plate to help the Chicago Bulls team. And had one of them been able to contribute consistently what we thought that they could produce and kind of take up that space that DeMar left, this Bulls team would have had a different type of season going so far because Zach and Vucevic are playing at pretty much all-star levels. So, yeah, it's a little disappointing that the young guys haven't been able to fill that role. And at this point, I am under the mindset that it's time to make some decisions.
Yeah,
So.
I ain't got nothing to say about that, and we're gonna get into that in a little bit here. But yeah, I agree with you on those points. The young Bulls of the Chicago Bulls have been very much a letdown this year.
Yeah.
Not what we were expecting going into this year.
Not at
More
all.
so the names of like Kobe White, Patrick Williams, especially, even guys like Josh Giddey.
Yeah.
Guys that have come in or have been here, and like you mentioned, with the departure of especially DeMar,
Yep.
a very ball-dominant player, you would expect some of these guys to flourish, and that just has not been the case.
Nope.
Kobe White has had his games, but he's so inconsistent.
That you can't depend on him game in and game out to give you the output that you're looking for.
And I think that's the underlying issue when talking about this Bulls team and evaluating them is people are like, yeah, well, Kobe does this and Kobe does that. But how often does he do it, though?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to do it at a consistent basis, like Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic have been doing this whole year.
Yep.
So
Because that's the only way you win in the NBA.
exactly,
Is consistency.
Consistency.
Yep.
You cannot be consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
Cannot be.
That's no way to win.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on real quick before we take up too much time to the halftime report, baby.
All right, lead us off, Coach.
All right. Well, as we're recording, today is January 22nd, Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's 7:34 a.m.
7:34.
The things we do
a.m.
for you guys,
Yeah.
man. But it's all because of schedule workarounds and whatnot. So
Man,
we do put our heart and soul into this.
we do.
But yesterday was a big day in Chicago Bears history and Chicago Bears media news. The Bears, I think, finally made the right choice and brought on Ben Johnson. Oh, that looks good, man. Wow, that looks good. I know, Coach. I know.
Go ahead. You talk first.
Yeah. I gotta say it is very refreshing as a Bears fan
Really
to
refreshing.
yes, to have
Okay.
hired a coach that was the popular consensus among fans and among media.
I'm glad. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Because we've
That's a
seen
very honest point.
because we've seen in years past when we've tried to go in our very complex and deep interview situations, we end up with guys like Mark Trustman, we end up with guys like Matt Nagy, we end up with guys like um
John Fox.
John Fox.
Matt
Yeah, I
Eberflus.
keep forgetting his first name.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus.
Mm.
You know, this is what the Bears have tried to do in the past, is try to be this creative, try to be this like different than the rest of the pack type of organization,
Or arguably just cheap.
or cheap as well,
Outside
right?
of John Fox.
Absolutely, yeah. John Fox cost a pretty penny, but
Yeah.
that was like the only attempt they tried making at getting a
Splash.
proven head coach.
Yeah.
And, you know, he wasn't a head coach that necessarily fit what the Bears needed at that time. You know what I
Right.
mean? You had rookie quarterbacks coming into situations. You had fucking Mike Glennon quarterbacking your team.
Yeah.
Just was not a good look to get
No.
John Fox at that time. So I think with the signing of Ben Johnson and kind of with just how this whole year has played out as far as like acquisitions, I don't think people can be too mad at Ryan Poles anymore.
Mm.
If he makes improvements to the offensive line this offseason.
Mm.
But I just want to say I personally am very happy Ben Johnson's coming to Chicago. I know people have their doubts, and I'm sure you're going to get into that soon. But I think if he could at least replicate a majority of the success he had in Detroit, and with the alleged coaching staff he's going to be bringing in, like bringing in Dennis Allen as our defensive coordinator, and possibly that one guy, what's his freaking name, Rizzi, to be the not Rizzi. Wait, yeah, it is Rizzi.
Yeah.
To be the special teams coordinator. He was the interim head coach over at New Orleans. I think this Bears coaching staff could finally be one of the best in the NFL as a staff, and he might be bringing on Lions O-line coach, which for their offensive coordinator position, which is said to be one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. So I think for Chicago fans, me included, it was a very exciting day yesterday. Now we just got to see this pan out and work.
Okay.
I rest my case.
I mean, you didn't have to make a case. I'm not a fan of this hire. I think that we have gone the first time head coach route before, and it has not panned out. One out of four head coaches or first time head coaches usually don't pan out. So we're taking a risk and we're taking a gamble. If it works, you get a Sean McVay, you get a Kyle Shanahan. If it doesn't, you get a Josh McDaniels, you get a Matt Patricia, you get somebody who just kind of comes in and bombs it. Obviously, I think that this decision was made solely about Caleb. This, to me, doesn't feel like a decision that was made about what would be the best for the Chicago Bears as a complete football team, which is why a star-studded supporting cast of coordinators and coaches will be necessary, because Ben Johnson's complete job, his real job, will be the development of Caleb. He's the head coach, but his main focus is going to be the relationship with Caleb and developing Caleb. The cast that he has around him will be more so responsible for the success of the team, more so than Ben Johnson. And I think that is the roll of the dice that you're playing with if you're the Chicago Bears. The roll of the dice is that you bring in some guys that'll be able to manage the team more than Ben Johnson, while Ben Johnson can kind of lock in and focus on developing Caleb and making him the star generational quarterback that he was projected to be. And that's a gamble. If it works, okay, cool. If it works, maybe we get a Super Bowl. Maybe we become a consistent winning team. Maybe we take the North, as Ryan Poles said when he was first hired as
brought up.
GM for the Chicago Bears. I know he's getting paid roughly $13 million a year, which is $5 million more on average than any first-time coach normally makes in NFL.
Oh,
in
is
the
he really?
NFL, yeah.
Oh, they paid the fuck out.
So
of
they
him
paid him
for 6 years.
So they paid him. And maybe that's the reason why he's a Chicago Bears head coach, is because they rewarded him handsomely to come this way. But in the end, I do think that time will tell. But I'm not excited. What I am is, at best, cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
That's what I'll say. At best, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't want to be pessimistic because I am a Bears fan and I want us to succeed. But I do think that this hire was a little tongue-in-cheek on saving face, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Sure. Yeah. And I think I think the points you're making are very valid. Not that I necessarily agree with them, because of course I'm excited to have Ben Johnson. I think
Right.
he's going to do great things here, but I don't think your take is far fetched either, because I've seen not a overwhelming amount, but I've seen a decent amount of people on social media as well, Bears fans specifically, that are also a little bit concerned with this Ben Johnson hire.
Yeah.
Just because of, again, that first time head coaching gig. You know what I mean? It's not for everybody. It really isn't for everybody to be a head coach. And it's shown in the past, like you said, with Matt Patricia and whatnot. So I definitely see the point you're trying to make there. Again, me personally, I think it was a great move. I think we're going to see the flowers finally flourish. I think he's the water to the flowers.
Okay.
And I think this team is finally going to grow into the franchise we've been wanting since '85.
Look at this. Did he show up today to be a poet or something? He got all the analogies today.
We're writing today.
Yeah,
baby.
I see. He's the water that's going to provide for the team and help it grow. All right, coach. I see. And Caleb's the son.
Yeah, Caleb is the gardener.
He's the gardener?
Yeah.
Okay. All
Caleb's
right.
the gardener.
Well, let's stay on Ben.
I have nothing to say about this second topic, besides the fact that when we first were putting the show together and you said this, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But then I saw Detroit Lions fans saying the same thing as you.
Yes.
A decent amount of them on social media. So I want you to expand upon why you're going to say this.
So the second topic is more so about Ben Johnson in the last game against the Washington Commanders. And the question is, did Ben Johnson throw the Lions game? As we know, the Lions had a prolific offense all season, made, NFL records and all type of things was going on with this year. The best record for Detroit football in their franchise history, secured the number 1 seed, made it to the NFC Championship game. Oh, no, made it to the divisional game. They were projected to make it to the NFC Championship game. Really, they were projected to get to the Super Bowl and potentially win it. So everything was lining up. Until we got to this game against the Washington Commanders. And if you're listening, Detroit fans, I hate to say this, but I'm right with you. And I hate to say that because I'm a Bears fan. And a part of me really is glad that you guys lost, but I'm not glad you guys lost in the way that you lost, because I think it is complete bullshit. And I believe personally, and I'm glad that you were able to get into the Detroit Lions community as I was, I feel that Ben Johnson threw this game against the Washington Commanders because he wanted to start his head coaching journey. And he was looking around the league and realizing that if he truly wanted to be a Chicago Bears head coach, which he said in his opening presser and the viral video going around where Ben Johnson enters into Hallis Hall and says, "This is where I wanted to be. This is where I want my family to be. Yeah, I'm glad. Everybody get back to work," having his little Mike Vrabel moment.
Yeah.
If that was adamantly true and what he's saying, I think there was a little bit of fear on his hands that if he prolonged his time in the playoffs, the Chicago Bears were going to have to make a decision because we got to get running. We got to get going. This team has to turn around. This team has to get things going. We got ASAP. We don't have too much time to be wasting because we have a projected expectation for next season, regardless of who the head coach was. We had a projected expectation to turn this shit around from what it was this season. And I think Ben Johnson understood that and knew that and decided, based upon what happened in that game, that he was ready to kind of end this run short so he can get on to where he was trying to go because he had already moved on. And I say that because the way that he called this game against the Washington Commanders was utterly stupid. And I mean that with all disrespect. Because going back to the boxing analogy, one of the thing that made Muhammad Ali great was he did not fight Joe Frazier the way he fought George Foreman. Right? He went in with a different understanding, a different mentality, a different game plan. With Joe Frazier, he could move around and go blow for blow and float and do things like that. With George Foreman, he understood that he had to let that guy wear himself out, so he used the rope-a-dope, as we all know. This game, going in, Ben Johnson completely understood that his defense was completely handicapped. So with that being said, the only way that you can help your defense is by controlling the football, controlling time of possession. More so, ensuring that you put a game plan out there that will help alleviate from having Jayden Daniels on the field as much as he was. Run the fucking football. It's all you have to do. As you highlighted perfectly, Jahmyr Gibbs had over 100 yards. Okay. We saw Saquon go for 205. We saw the fucking Buffalo Bills say, hey, Josh Allen, get your ass out there and run too. We saw this from multiple teams that ended up winning. They ran the fucking football. Detroit had an opportunity to possess the ball, keep control of the game, and keep Jayden Daniels on the sideline as much as possible because you could not win this game in a shootout, which is exactly what Ben Johnson went into this game thinking, that he could do the same shit that he did in the regular season, even with the bullshit trick plays that ended up in some worked, and one was called at a really bad time.
Didn't work. Yeah.
At a really bad time, and it really didn't work. Being too fucking cute. When all you had to do was put the ball in Jahmyr Gibbs' hands, who is your best player on offense, in my opinion, outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, but arguably, I would say Jahmyr Gibbs is the star of that offensive side of the ball. Put the ball in his hands. You got David Montgomery back. Use him as well. Essentially, both of them should have had close to 20 to 25 carries apiece.
Well, I think Jahmyr did get over. I think he was at 21, but
I said
think,
a piece.
Well, yeah, but I think Montgomery's still facing some underlying injuries.
He might be, but he's there playing.
That is true.
Figure it out.
Very
true. Find out a way. If he showed up to take on the task.
Yeah.
He showed up to take on the task. Everybody is sacrificing. Everybody is hurt, as we already said.
Yeah.
Nobody is completely 100%. So we can't be talking about trying to save somebody now, and they already then came back from the mission. It's like war. You came back, you ready to soldier up. We got you as much as we can, but you got to do your part too. So at the end of the day, for me, Ben Johnson came in with a terrible game plan. Terrible. And he caused the Detroit Lions to lose this game. People want to say the defense didn't show up. Well, we knew they wasn't going to show up, to be honest. They had too many fucking injuries.
Absolutely.
And that was the major concern about why people thought Washington had a chance in the first place, was because the defense was so riddled with injury. Ben Johnson, if you knew that, you understood that. So control the game, run the ball, possess the ball more than the Washington Commanders, to keep Jayden Daniels as much as possible off of the field. Because it wasn't like you were going against the Washington Commanders offense that isn't top-ranked itself. It's a top-ranked offense. So you knew they were going to score. And you knew your defense was going to have a hard time stopping them. So why would you put your team in a situation where they would have to be out there in a shootout? No. Any other game you put up 31 points, you win. But you couldn't stop them.
I do want to note the Commanders had 34 minutes time of possession, and the Detroit Lions only had 26. That's where the game turns right there.
Yes.
You know?
And that goes to my point. possess the football
Mhm.
to keep Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders off the field as much.
Yeah.
Because if you limit their ability to score, you give yourself a better chance to win the game. In any other game, if they would have just ran the ball, possessed the ball, they would have gave themselves a fighting chance. So I completely feel the Detroit Lions fans who feel like Ben Johnson threw the game, because that's where I stand. I think he came in with a bogus game plan. He threw the fucking game because he already had one foot out the door, and he was worried more so about securing his opportunity to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and he understood that the more he stayed in the playoffs and the more the run prolonged, the jobs that he felt like he wanted, or the job that he wanted, will most likely be gone to someone else, because the Bears have shit to do and we got shit to do fast.
I also want to fact check myself. Jahmyr Gibbs only got 14 carries, and David Montgomery only had 7. So in total, the Detroit Lions only ran the ball 23 times, passed it for 40. Jaden Daniels threw the ball 31 times. As a team, the Commanders ran the ball for, over 40 times. Jaden Daniels ran the ball 16 times. Granted, that includes scrambling and
Yeah, I
whatnot,
know,
but
I know,
still,
I know.
like that's
I know.
yeah, that's exactly what you're hinting at. You know what I mean? Like that's I get you. And like I don't think it's far fetched. Did he throw the game? I don't think so, because like that's some Adam Sandler fucking longest yard type shit. You know what I mean? But
it could be like that, but it feels like that.
I can see why it feels like that.
It feels like that, and if I'm a Lions fan, I feel like that, because a lot of Lions fans said this was some bullshit.
That's why a lot of them are saying fuck Ben Johnson now.
Yeah,
but
they're like fuck him, because he had one foot out, and I agree with them. He really did. He's smart enough to know what type of game plan they needed to have against that team for that game. I'm not saying don't be who you are the next game, but particularly against a team that is just as prolific on offense as you, and you have a defense that is as beat up as you have. A part of the offense job is to help the defense the same way a part of the defense job is to help the offense. When you have a bad offense, the defense job is to set them up in short fields and things like that, so that the offense has a better chance to score. But when the offense is more prolific than the defense, and the defense having issues, the way that the offense can help the defense is by possessing the ball more, to give the defense less times that they have to be on the field to make big plays. That's it.
Yeah.
Football is very simple, but it has to work. Everybody has to teeter-totter and kind of be a yin for yang situation. That's the only way it truly works. And Ben Johnson went out there selfishly for himself. And whether people want to believe my conspiracy, I don't give a fuck. I know what I saw.
I agree.
I know what I saw.
I agree with the point that he had one foot out the door.
Yeah.
Because, of course, he was getting all of these interviews and talking to all of these people, which a lot of other coaches are getting as well. But as we heard Adam Schefter say when he did announce Ben Johnson going to the Bears, that he's been working very hard at putting together a star-studded coaching staff. He already knew. And he was already working more at that, which I think maybe led to the lapses in game planning for this Washington Commanders game.
No, it didn't lead to a lapse of game planning. That motherfucker just knew what he was doing coming into that game.
Maybe
coming to that game.
Maybe I'm not gonna say yes. I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah,
but I want that to be your take.
Yeah,
but let's go ahead and get into this third topic here of the Ben Johnson report. I'll call it. Did the Bears make a good decision hiring Ben Johnson?
I'm gonna go first and keep it fast.
Go ahead.
The reason why I said I wanted to have this last topic is because I just wanted to highlight Ryan Poles and say once again, Ryan Poles, you don't have balls. You don't. You don't have balls, Ryan Poles.
Why do you say that?
Because yet again, he is doing the safe thing by just giving the fans exactly what they're asking for. It's very easy to save face if you just appease the fan base. If you just do what the media is telling you to do. The media told you that Justin Fields wasn't shit. Go get Caleb Williams. Cool. That's exactly what you did. The media told you that you have to get Ben Johnson. The fans said we want Ben Johnson, especially coming off a season where everybody was calling for your neck. Everybody was calling for your head. Ryan Poles should be next. He should be next to go. He's a terrible GM. Blah, 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 blah. Because Eberflus got out. You fired Eberflus. You fired Shane midseason. Never been done before. Never in the Bears history has that been done before. But you did it. this season because the fans were calling for it, and you got that done. Then you went out and got who they wanted as their head coach. Appeasing. Not really doing the tough, not really making the tough football decisions.
But I see what you're saying, but I think you also got to understand, for the longest time as a Bears fan, we've gotten the exact opposite of Ryan Poles. We've gotten the Bears that are trying to be out of the ordinary, that are trying to do things different than everybody else. They're trying to, and it's never fucking worked for them.
Yeah, because they didn't have smart people doing it. He's smarter than the GMs that we've had in the past.
But I think this is him being different. I think, like, compared to the other GMs of Bears, history of the Bears franchise, he is finally
doing what the fans say.
Not just that, but he's finally, I believe, just doing the right thing. That's why Bears fans are calling for these things to happen, is because it's the right thing to do.
Okay, Bears fans don't know anything about good quarterbacking. We've never seen it. Bears fans don't know anything about great head coaches. We've only had really 2 of them. George Halas and Lovie Smith. And Mike Ditka, because he won a Super Bowl with us, and Buddy Ryan, the defensive coordinator. So we've only known 3 great head coaches. So it's not like the fan base has just been eating up victories and wins and dynasties and great head coaches and great quarterbacks. But we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, but you got to see why then it's so refreshing to have a GM that has been doing the popular opinion, popular vote.
It's refreshing because it's appeasing. It's not refreshing because it's not adequate. And what I mean by that is, because I really don't want to make this a segment like that, because we can have a later debate about that. But just looking at what's going on with Jayden Daniels right now, you made a bad decision at number 1, in my perspective, and I've been saying that from the jump. Okay, you didn't make the best decision. Let me not say bad.
Yeah, okay, sure.
In my opinion, you didn't make the best decision because you followed what the fan base said. You followed what the media narrative was saying, that Caleb had to be number 1. So you went with that because you knew that wouldn't upset the fan base. That wouldn't upset the media. Because at the time, had he passed on Caleb in that draft, he would have got crucified in the media. They would have told him because we didn't know what Jayden Daniels was going to do. So at the time, had he drafted Jayden Daniels over Caleb, the media would have been like, look at this dumbass. Look at Ryan Poles thinking that he's smarter than everybody else. The whole world is telling you that Caleb Williams is going to be a star. And Bears fans would have did it to him. They would have said the same thing. The whole world is telling you that Caleb Williams is a star, and you go out here and draft Jayden Daniels.
That would have been just the classic Bears move to do.
Right.
Like, that's the same thing what happened when we drafted Mitch Trubisky.
But it's not as bad because Jayden Daniels is more proven than what Mitchell was.
Yeah,
way more proven than what Mitchell was.
Yeah,
See, Mitchell,
I agree on that.
And this is what I mean by the differences. The difference is we had dumbass GMs and dumbass people involved that were making dumbass decisions because they didn't have any type of football perspective. And they were just doing quote unquote creative things off the whim. He has shown me that he's a way more knowledgeable than any of the people that we've had before at the football position. Some moves have been questionable, but some moves have made a lot of sense. So my thing is, I think had he done his due diligence the way that he should have when I said about Jayden and Caleb, if he had done his due diligence, he would have saw that Jayden would have been a better pick. But nevertheless, I'm not trying to stay on that. What I'm just saying is it's crowd appeasing. It's crowd pleasing. And to save his fucking face. He knows right now that he was on the hot seat. Fans wanted to call for his neck, right? Now he's off the hot seat for the moment. I'm not saying that he's completely off the hot seat. I'm not saying that he's completely off the hook. But some of that has been tapered back a little bit.
Sure.
It's been tapered back. Fans have kind of, okay, all right, Poles. Got us our guy. We got Ben Johnson. So now they've cooled off. Now he still has to do his work and due diligence in the offseason, get some offensive linemen and blah, blah, blah to still make this seem like we're turning things around. But as of now, he's continuing to do what's necessary to save face with the fan base, the season ticket holders, the board of directors for the Chicago Bears. Like, this seems more like business decision than it is a football decision. And that's just my personal opinion.
Okay. I mean, I can see why you say that. I think Ryan Poles made the right decision in getting Ben Johnson. Again, I think he was your best pick as far as what he can turn this Bears team into.
Okay.
Because we've known that if we do get a defensive coach, the defense is always going to ball, as the Bears defense has always been great. We've never had an offense. And that's why
we've had running games.
Yeah.
We've just never had a passing game.
Exactly, and you need that in today's NFL. You need to be able to pass the football. Yes, you need the run game, but you need the passing game way more than before.
The run game has won more games in the playoffs than the passing game.
I'm not saying you don't need the run game. I'm saying the run game is very important, and that's where Ben Johnson also excels at too. You got to understand that the whole year in Detroit, they had a great it was run it down their throats.
Yeah, a great two-head monster between Gibbs and Montgomery. I'm not saying this is not about me saying that he's a bad offensive coordinator.
I'm not saying that. Me personally, I think he was the best choice we could have had.
Okay.
And the most, I think he's got the highest ceiling, and I think he's got
the lowest floor.
I don't think the lowest floor, man. I don't think so. I think the lowest floor would have been if you got like Brian Flores or somebody like that.
Okay.
Me personally, I think Ben Johnson has one of the highest floors as far as all of the candidates we could have gotten. Like, you bring in a Pete Carroll, I mean, how
you bring in a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yes, and I get that, and I think the Raiders are trying to pursue him now. I think Tom Brady has switched his attention from Ben Johnson to now Pete Carroll since Ben Johnson's off the board, and maybe that'll be a good pickup for them. Maybe, who knows? They don't have a quarterback yet. You know, how confident are you in Pete Carroll staying with the team long-term enough to be able to establish...
I'm confident in Pete Carroll establishing a winning culture because I've seen him do it.
A winning culture and probably a solid coaching staff that has some continuity.
And a solid
right?
defense because I've seen him do it.
Yeah, okay, but I don't think that's what necessarily the Bears needed. I don't think Caleb Williams and company needed a 72-year-old head coach
to establish culture?
That will still live on the aspirations of what he did with the Seahawks.
Why does everybody think that old people are just stuck in their ways all the time?
Because a lot of the times they are.
Okay.
Because they are a lot of the times.
And you think as a coach, Pete Carroll being the type of person
he's not capable. I'm not saying that at all. I just think Ben Johnson was the clear-cut choice and probably just, like you said, the easiest choice because I think of the upside that it does bring. You know what I mean? If you brought in, and I'm just going to wrap this up because then we're just going to go straight into predictions because we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
I think if you brought in a Mike McCarthy, that would have been the McCaskey move. Why? Because you're going to have a guy that's probably good enough to get you into the playoffs or almost into the playoffs every single year, but you wouldn't do shit in the playoffs.
Why?
Because we've seen that from Mike McCarthy. He's going to be a good enough coach to get his team to the playoffs, but he'll never be the guy that's going to be able to take his team over the finish line.
He already did it before.
I know he did it in Green Bay, but how long ago was that, Coach?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter because then you see how the things played out in Green Bay and the decision to go to Dallas and then how that played out.
How hard is it to win a Super Bowl?
Very hard.
Okay. So we know that. How hard is it to continuously repeat being a Super Bowl winner?
No, very hard. I agree with you.
Okay, my point is he got the job done once. There are multiple factors that can contribute to why he didn't get it done again. But what you want is a guy that can consistently, one, get you to the playoffs and potentially put you in a position to win the Super Bowl. That's something that the Bears have not had. We've never had a guy at the head coach position that we know can consistently get us into the playoffs.
Well,
that's why people.
We had Lovie Smith.
That's why. Well, yeah, but he wasn't always consistently getting us to the playoffs. Sometimes we missed, sometimes we made it. What I'm saying is that's the reason why people were like Mike Tomlin, because we know for sure what Mike Tomlin can bring. Whether or not you get to the playoffs every time, you know you'll have a winning season, and that's something that the Bears fans just would like. We would like to know that we can be consistently a winning team, a winning franchise. What I'm saying is Mike McCarthy has got the job done, and on top of that, Caleb would have been exactly the type of quarterback that he's used to from Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Dak Prescott. It fits a little bit more with Mike McCarthy and what he's been used to from the quarterback position. So what I'm saying is Mike McCarthy could have had potentially a chance to revive himself the same way Andy Reid got a chance to revive himself in Kansas City. I mean, when he was with Philadelphia and he had Donovan McNabb, they never won a Super Bowl. They got to the NFC Championship a couple times, and I think they got to the Super Bowl and lost. But Andy Reid didn't become a Super Bowl champion until he got with Patrick Mahomes. But the framework for what Andy Reid was already built in there. You can see it. What I'm saying is Mike McCarthy is a coach that already got the job done, and we've seen what he's done with multiple quarterbacks. And not just one, but he's been able to take multiple quarterbacks and give them great seasons, individual great seasons, MVP seasons, MVP candidate seasons. So, I mean, as much as we could say, oh, it's a George McCaskey type of pick, it would have been a good pick as well. But I think, again, the fan base is more important than making the tough football decision. And appeasing the fan base seems to be something that Ryan Poles is very keen to and has his ear to. And I hope it serves out well. I hope that listening to the Bears fans, I hope that we are as smart as we think we are. That's all I'm going to say. I hope Bears fans are as smart as we believe we are to be, and him appeasing us will eventually serve our best interest. But just like kids who want candy all the time, you can't do it.
But I think where that take is troubling is that we talk about Ben Johnson like the Bears were the only people pursuing Ben Johnson hotly.
I'm not saying
you know
that.
What I mean? Like, and I'm not saying you're saying that either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like it's been so portrayed in the media when like the people that didn't want Ben Johnson and wanted like Mike McCarthy or somebody else, when we got Ben Johnson, they were like, oh my God, like first-time head coach, like why are we getting him? Like we should get an established guy. Like you gotta understand, I think it's very important to note how high profiled of a coaching candidate Ben Johnson was in this whole coaching carousel.
Right.
It was Ben Johnson and then everybody else.
No, I get
know
that.
what I mean?
I get that, but I think the difference is that when you look around the landscape of those teams, most of those teams are more dysfunctional than what the Bears are set up to be. The Raiders right now are starting from scratch. The Jaguars pretty much will be starting from scratch. The New York Giants pretty much is starting from scratch. The New York Jets will be starting from scratch once Aaron Rodgers announced that he retires. The Saints are starting from scratch in a sense because Derek Carr is not going to be their quarterback of the future. The Bears were projected to be the most formidable, ready to go kind of cookie cutter team. They have the quarterback, they have the defense, they have the skill possessions. Really, it's just plug and play offensive line and let's rock and roll. Not saying that can't be the same thing for Ben Johnson, but what I'm saying is the reason why Ben Johnson was so coveted is because more of these other organizations was completely ready to kind of tear things down in his image. The Bears, I'm not sure if that's necessarily the decree that they're willing to do that, and that's yet to come. That's yet to be seen in the offseason, and we'll only know that based upon if they extend guys or let guys go, trade guys. You know, we'll find out exactly what they're willing to do for the Ben Johnson experience. But the reason why Ben Johnson was so coveted is because more teams were in positions, unlike the Bears, where they wasn't necessarily prepared to be a high expectation team. Once we got Ben Johnson, our Super Bowl odds were right back in the mix as if we got Patrick Mahomes.
Well, no, it got increased, but like
it got increased, but that's my point. My point is it's just like we're back on the same train of when we got Caleb. We're back on the same train. Now we're back on the same train with Ben Johnson of expectations again coming into this season where we have to win, where we have to showcase what we can do because now you got the wonderkin OC and you got the generational quarterback to be. So now it's just like we're back to the same table of where we was this season where the expectations were high. Now we're back to that again. And I think that is once again a setup for failure. Now they could succeed. I'm not saying it won't happen. They could definitely succeed, but we're back to the same table of the expectations. And that's why last episode when I asked if we were retooling or win now, based upon what we're doing would make the best sense. If you're still trying to win, go get the coach that's proven that he knows how to win. If you're trying to retool and rebuild this thing in his image, then I was perfectly okay with Ben Johnson. If I find out that we are retooling, we made the right decision. We made the right decision.
And I think we are retooling. I don't think, bless you. I don't think we're tearing it down and just starting all over.
But if I find out that we're not retooling and we're keeping the same team together for the most part and it's just plug and play, then I'm going to be
and I could yeah.
Then I'm going to be worried. Sorry.
Yeah, and I could get behind that point where it's like if you keep the same roster that was supposed to be a deep playoff run team, whatever, or make the playoffs at least. I could see the concern with bringing on first-time head coach and whatnot, and you would want probably a more seasoned guy, but I don't think that's the direction that the direction the Bears are going to go into. I think there's going to be some retooling. Like, I don't think Keenan Allen's going to be a part of this team anymore. Like, I don't think
and maybe DJ Moore gets traded.
I don't think so. I like Gerald Everett's probably out of here. We probably get a different tight end. We probably make some moves on the offensive line and maybe on the defensive end as well. I don't think the defense is going to change too much. I think there's just going to be draft picks made and maybe somebody in the draft taken. But I seriously think that's it. I think it will be. I do believe it's a retool, not a complete teardown and moving or keeping the same guys. I don't think it's going to be kept the same guys.
And I just want to say real quick, breaking news, Khalil Mack will not be retiring, and so he will be an unrestricted free agent.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, he's not going back to the Chargers.
No.
I wonder where he's going to go. He's still got some juice, man.
He could come back to Chicago.
I would love that because we do need another edge. I could definitely see.
And we could still end up drafting the edge to learn.
Very true. Like Abdul Carter, he'd be fucking phenomenal. But I also do see, since Dennis Allen's coming over with this 4-3 look, I would not be surprised if the Bears try to make him play for Chase Young.
That'd be nice too.
Orleans.
Maybe probably get them both. You could probably get them both.
Possibly. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into our conference championship predictions.
Ooh, where's the music?
Yes,
baby. Vibes. I gotta feel the vibes. All right. These are the Super Bowl odds. Let's get that bracket up. That playoff bracket.
Ref number 14. There she is.
All right. Championship games. Predictions. You want to go first or you want me to go first?
Go ahead. Go first.
All right. Kansas City wins against Buffalo.
Okay.
Late field goal.
Okay.
To win the game.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes gets some type of penalty. It could be pass interference or something like that, or roughing the passer. But Buffalo finds a way to make this all about the refs, and we continue to have this refs are on Kansas City side narrative.
Okay.
Washington beats Philadelphia.
I already know you're gonna say that. Yeah.
Washington beats Philadelphia in the NFC Championship. Jalen Hurts is not 100%. Washington finds a way to neutralize Saquon Barkley, and they're going to make Jalen Hurts have to beat him with his arm. Now, Jalen Hurts could surprise me, and he could end up doing it. But I think Washington will find a way to win this game, and it'll come down to fourth quarter. It'll come down to a fourth quarter game between Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, where Jaden Daniels has been really, really good in the fourth quarter. So that's where I have it, where it ends up now being a Kansas City versus Washington Super Bowl, where Kansas City is trying to do something historic by being the first team to three-peat, and Washington is trying to do something historic by having a rookie lead them to a Super Bowl victory. Mm-hmm. And you set up this Super Bowl where history is being made on either side.
Great storyline, absolutely. And I don't think that's far-fetched. I think it's very possible. Washington being a divisional opponent with Philly, they've played them twice already. Pretty close games.
1-1.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if Washington could pull it out. But me personally, I've got Kansas City handling business in KC against Buffalo. I've got Philly winning at home. There's going to be a really close game. I still got Philly. And then we get the rematch from 2 years ago. We get Kansas City and we get Philly.
That's going to be so boring. I don't want that rematch, but I go ahead.
I got KC. KC gets their three-peat. I don't think Philly is equipped to win a Super Bowl. They should be, but I don't think Jalen Hurts is that guy that's going to be able to outperform Patrick Mahomes, because we see in the Super Bowl, it's usually quarterback v. quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, and it ain't no weather. It ain't no weather situations that's going to be holding you back.
Oh, shit, Lord knows. I mean, Louisiana's getting pounded by a fucking blizzard right now.
Yeah, but don't
they got like a foot of snow.
But don't they have a dome?
They do, right? Yeah, but I mean, regardless, like, everything around there is not fucking accustomed to that fucking weather out there, man. It's crazy. But yeah, I got KC and Philly. You've got KC and Washington. Yeah, I think there's going to be some good games coming up weekend. And
all right.
I'm excited to see, man.
Now, who wins the Super Bowl? Let's go back to that Super Bowl odds.
Let's go Super Bowl
odds.
So
since we both said...
Wow, I got Philly as the favorite, huh?
Yeah. I got Washington and Kansas City in the Super Bowl, and I have
Don't do it. Just say KC. Don't fucking do it.
I have Washington pulling off the upset.
Okay, all right.
Because I have Jaden Daniels pulling off a Magic Johnson type season.
Okay.
And I do think that the NFL wants to protect their real GOAT, Tom Brady. They don't really want Patrick Mahomes doing the three-peat. It's almost like you don't really want people breaking Jordan's records.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't really want that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah, I've got the top two favorites here, Kansas City and Philly, of course. Surprising that Philly's the favorite here.
I mean, because their rushing attack is crazy.
Shit.
And when you look at all of these,
when
you look at all these teams, none of them have the best rushing defense.
I gotta go on one of my betting apps and put it on KC then, since they don't have the highest odds. Might make a little bit more money out of that.
But you got KC winning it all the way.
I got KC winning it all the way again. They're three-peat.
All right, I'm putting my money on the underdog. I got Washington.
Okay.
Do I really believe it? No. I just want a good
You want us
story.
to have it. Yeah.
Who do I really think is going to win? You want me to be honest? Who do I think is really going to win?
think
Kansas
KC's
City.
Yeah.
But I just want to root for the underdog,
Okay.
so I'm
All right.
rooting for Washington.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, anyways, great episode. Episode 17 of the Halftime Podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in again. Thank you to all the fans. Thank you to Brian over here at Audio High for setting this all up for us every single week. It's been Coach Conrad.
It's been Coach Malcolm.
And you know why we always say it, see red and bear down, baby.
Yes, sir.